On this week's full-time roundup, one more league title in the books, 2 to go. We cover the epic Prim race and whether Barcelona can chase down Real Madrid, plus the last spots for European football heat up throughout Europe. Full-time roundup, folks, right now. Welcome in to another episode of Full-Time Roundup. It is me, your host, co-host, Daniel Brackett. Joined alongside me is Matt Gesslin. Matt, how are you doing on a beautiful Sunday night?
Great Sunday night. Good weekend of football across Europe, here in Charlotte as well. I know you were, of course, traveling as usual, never in town. But I hope you had a good weekend as well. 85 degrees here in the Carolinas, so I think we just bypassed spring, but we'll take it.
Absolutely. I think it's going to cool down next week, but I enjoyed the weather as much as I could.
You're in your hoodie in preparation, right? That's
I am. That is true, but I did get some color this weekend, so caught some rays, and it was a wonderful weekend at the beach with family. Happy Easter to all who celebrate. But let's go ahead and jump right in. First on the docket is Arsenal and City drawing. Matt, this was the definition of a nap game. Not really any chances for either team. But who would you say this result was better for?
Well, obviously the team that's not even in the competition was the team that it was best for in Liverpool, who win earlier in the day and extend their lead. But you mentioned this wasn't really an exciting game. I think tactically it was, if you'd like tactics, I think it was a fantastic game. Both teams, both managers set up their squads to kind of not lose it, which didn't lead to an exciting fireworks offensive affair, but a lot of players missing. Obviously, this game coming right off the international break didn't help timing wise. I think if this game had been a couple weeks later, I think we would have seen a much more entertaining matchup. But I think if you're City, you have to look at this in a good light as well. They were missing a bunch of players. They also lost another key defender in the first half, and yet Arsenal, who have been dominating these teams in the Premier League, scoring in bunches, go to the Etihad and don't get a goal. So I think if you're City, you're kind of in the catbird seat, which sounds weird being in third place, but we know what they can do. We know that they're going to probably more than likely win out or win most of the games. And so you feel like they kind of have the advantage here. You expected Arsenal to go for it, I think. And I don't know if Martinelli was a little bit unfit, if he wasn't fully fit, but it was weird to me without Kyle Walker that you don't start Martinelli on the left-hand side, who's caused a lot of trouble for Walker, the fastest player on City. And without him, you would have had a clear advantage on that left-hand side. And so a lot of things to kind of unpack here, but I think if you're asking me just who was the preferred winner, quote unquote, with no winner being on the board, City was the winner in this one.
Yeah, starting Gabriel Jesus was an interesting ploy by Arteta. It's usually probably just because he is an ex-Manchester City player, so he has motivation to obviously perform against his ex-club. But I do agree that Martinelli kind of running against a center back would have probably been a really good fit, and then especially with Rico Lewis slotting in at right back. I think this was one of Martin Odegaard's worst games this season. He's been unbelievable the entire season, but he just struggled with that final pass today. But I mean, for the player of his quality and how well he's been playing, I'm going to give him a pass here, but I just wanted to at least point it out. But someone else did not play well today, and it's starting to become a little bit of a trend for me in terms of the big games, and that is Erling Haaland disappearing in big games. I thought Saliba and Gabriel kind of had him in their pocket, and he, had less than, I think, 20 touches the entire game.
Yeah, it's a tricky one though too, right? Because you're talking about arguably two of the best center backs in the league that you're going up against. So it's not an easy ask by any stretch of the imagination. And yet the guy still has 18 goals in the league and leads the league in goals. And he can also just pop up out of nowhere and give you something, right? A little smash and grab type of situation here, which I think City would have been completely content with as well, like I just mentioned in my previous segment there. But Yeah, it's disappointing. Of course he scores in the Champions League, which are big games, and City are still in the running in the Champions League. So you have to look at that in that light as well. It will be interesting to see how these two teams balance out going forward. They're both still in the Champions League, which starts back up in 2 weeks. Of course, Liverpool also in Europa League, so there's still midweek games to be played and a lot of football for both of these squads. So I wouldn't get too caught up on Erling Haaland. He also played in the international break. I think you saw what across all of Europe, teams, and not just Europe, I think all over the globe, really, teams that played or had players play in the international window look totally different than teams that didn't have players participate. I think you saw that with some of the bottom half table teams in both the Liga, Bundesliga, and Premier League. They, those teams that were able to kind of rest up, take some time with their managers during the week and kind of collect themselves. I think you saw them overperform, to be honest. And that's partly due to international break. And it's a tough schedule, right? These guys are playing the toughest league in the world against the toughest opponent. They're playing week in, week out, midweek games, games thick and fast. And so I think it was to be expected that this game wasn't going to be the true fireworks that we expected.
Yeah, and just an update on the table, Manchester City is now 3 points behind Liverpool. Arsenal is 2 points behind Liverpool, all tied with 29 games played. But we do have some other fixtures that happen. You mentioned Liverpool get it done to stay on top of the league. This Brighton game was pretty. It was a fun watch for sure. Brighton kind of go down the field and score almost immediately with a Welbeck finish, and Jurgen's just on the touchline, just not believing what he's seeing from his squad. But they turn it around and they get two big goals. Mohamed Salah, I mean, he could have had a hat trick today, but he was able to get one. So a win's a win. Obviously, as a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't say that performance made me feel warm and fuzzy, but like you said, all these players were on international break, traveling from all over the place, so they're probably a bit leggy. I just would like that final third to just have that cutting edge that we lacked today. But all in all, 3 points, huge to kind of put yourself from the other two teams. But I did see you throw on your Instagram story watching the Liverpool game and said football's life. Has Chelsea become so bad that you've come to the dark side? Because it seems like you might be a rider for Liverpool.
Don't get carried away. It could have been two teams outside my window. I would have been watching it. So it just happened to be the first game of the day. You mentioned, of course you guys get the W. This is what championship teams do, right? You're not playing great. You go down early, you have a little adversity, and yet you battle back. Brighton's a good squad. We've seen them underperform a little bit this year. Probably one of the bigger surprises, sitting currently in ninth in the table. But you never know what you're going to get from De Zerbi and the boys, and they looked a little better, especially in the first half. I think second half, you guys kind of made it a little bit more of a walk in the park for yourselves, although late. Was very surprising to see an experienced team continue to try and go for a third and make some very interesting passes that Brighton would turn around and counter on pretty quickly. So was surprising there. Again, Klopp was furious on the sideline. You could see him screaming at players, and rightfully so. We saw a similar incident last night here in Charlotte where you're up in the 90th minute and you're trying to go forward and get another goal just for stats. And it costs Charlotte here. Obviously, luckily it didn't cost you guys today, but that's the type of stuff that you just got to see out and you kind of got away with it. I've been stressing from a Chelsea perspective when we're winning at times, just go to the corner, just go and get the final whistle. And again, I was surprised to see that a little bit from you guys today, but all in all, I think you're in a pretty good place as well. You have a relatively straightforward schedule. I mean, you have United, you have Everton still, which will be tough, of course, Merseyside derby, and with them trying to potentially stay up at that point, you got a little bit of a run, but of course you still have Sheffield, you still have Luton, you have a relatively straightforward schedule. So could be, it's essentially yours to lose right now, of course, with you guys being at the top.
If we're going to rank difficulty of schedules, I'd say the easiest, number one, is Liverpool. Number two, Arsenal. Number three, Manchester City. which is kind of, how the table is looking right now. So that could definitely play a factor with April being probably the biggest month of the year in terms of, getting to that final stretch to win a trophy. But we're definitely going to keep you guys updated with all the games and how it goes. And I'm going to enjoy this kind of run that seems to all the way to the death of the Premier League for the season. Now, Spurs, that Spurs game against Luton was wild. I said it was drunk, just because of, two all-time misses from Tottenham. One hit the post, hit the other post, and then was cleared off the line. There was another one. It was like almost like a FIFA rage quit as like there was like 7 shots, 3 goal line clearances. They just could not put the ball in the back of the net. But Human Son comes up big again in like the 85th minute with the winner there. Spurs, obviously, like I said, made it tough on themselves. But a win's a win, and Luton continue to be a gnat in the big side's ears as they play.
Yeah, you just starting to feel like they may not have enough, which is the tough part from a Luton perspective. They definitely play teams tough, and at home it's a totally different team. This was of course at Tottenham Stadium, and so they gave Spurs everything they could. And you mentioned Son gets the winner and keeps pace with Villa with that game in hand, which is a big deal for Champions League spot. Close the gap as well, I believe, or they kept the gap at
they kept pace.
They kept pace from goal differential as well, which could be a big deal going forward. But yeah, I think for me, this was what you expected. Of course, Spurs were the favorites here, and they needed to keep pace with Villa, although they went first, so they kind of set the tone. But again, from a Luton perspective, you just wonder if they're going to run out of gas and if they have enough to stay up. And I would love to see them stay up. I've said this before, of the teams that are fighting in the bottom, between Everton, Nottingham Forest, Luton, and even a team like Brentford. I'd love to see Luton stay, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think Ange has to start maybe rethinking his lineup. Brennan Johnson just keeps coming off the bench and putting in great performances week in, week out. So I think he should either start over Kulusevski or Timo Werner for now on, just because he's kind of the guy next to Son who's making these things happen for Spurs if they want to keep challenging for that 5th spot. So I at least wanted to mention that. Dragusin got some minutes as well, so that's encouraging.
Yep.
As a Tottenham fan as well.
Yeah, you mentioned, Dragusin getting on, and you're starting to look now. Of course, they're still fighting with Villa, so we don't want to take anything away from that battle. It's a heated battle, and it would be a fantastic achievement for Ange to get Champions League in his first year. But you also have to understand this is his first year in that same light, right? And he's still looking at his roster. He's still looking at pieces that he needs to get, in the summertime, which hopefully he gets the backing from the owner, which has always been questionable at times. But this is a great team that's starting to build something. It's painful for me to say that, but it's looking like this is a team that has future plans and a future with it. Now, the big question, of course, I doubt this would happen, but you never know. There's a lot of rumors swirling around that maybe a team like Liverpool would go and try and coax Ange to come and be their manager. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I doubt that happens, to be honest. But if that does happen, things completely flip on their head, and that's a totally different ball game. But should be an interesting race from here on out for Spurs, and you just hope they can continue the pace and maybe sneak into Champions League. 5 could be enough, but we'll just you want to be in 4th. You don't want to take that risk of playing jeopardy there.
Just for the record, I'd be very down for Big Ange to coach Liverpool. Very down for that. He might be my favorite coach after Xabi Alonso announced he will be staying. I would love Ange to coach Liverpool with just that aura of a personality, just so charismatic. But yeah, no, Aston Villa also plays Manchester City this week. So, they lose and Spurs win, then they're almost level on points. And that makes the 5th spot even more interesting as Villa, beat Wolves 2-0 this weekend. Pretty ho-hum game there. But I wanted to kind of talk about this United game. They were absolutely outplayed by Brentford, but were able to rescue a draw at the death. Mason Mount comes on and gets I think it was his first goal of the season, or first goal since his injury return. And Brentford outshot United 30 something to I think 11, which is quite remarkable considering Brentford only scored one goal. But they, as well as it seemed like every single team coming back from international break, just could not put the ball in the back of the net this weekend. But they hit the post, they hit the crossbar. I mean, they just spurned chance after chance, and they ended up biting them in the ass late.
Yeah, I mentioned smash and grab earlier. That's exactly what this was, and United almost pulled it off. Of course, they concede an even later goal than Mason Mount's 96-minute opener. So they give up that 99th, almost call it a 100th minute goal. You have to wonder what Eric Ten Hag is thinking. You get outplayed. You get a little healthier. Lissandro Martinez was also on the bench, which was a good sign for United. And you kind of go to a tough place. G-Tech Stadium is not an easy place to play. And you do kind of get what you want. You play defensive, you play counterattacking football, you take on all that pressure. You get that one goal late, which you think is enough. And then typical United, they give it right back. So United are kind of in limbo. There's no chance for them really to catch Spurs or Villa for that Champions League spot. Now that I say that, they'll probably go on a run and catch them. But you just kind of feel like United are kind of stuck in the motion here, and you just wonder what happens with Eric Ten Hag. These are the type of games, if your job is on the line, you have to see out, especially when you get that such a late opener. That's the tough spot to be in, where you give up that late equalizer even when the game should have been over.
There's no way they get in fifth. I'll go ahead and say that right now. But I wanted to at least mention the rumors of Gareth Southgate. There's been rumors of him stepping down from England after the Euros and becoming the Manchester United coach, as well as all the backroom staff in England. As a Liverpool fan, I'm sure you could speak the same as a Chelsea fan. I am 1,000% for that. I would think that is the most Manchester United move of all time, and it would backfire tremendously for everyone just laughing at them.
To be fair, I did hear Liverpool the same, so I wouldn't throw you guys out of the way.
No shot.
I heard the same thing. So both you guys are looking for someone.
Clickbait.
Hey, that's what we're here for. A little bit of clickbait. No, I mean, it's an interesting situation. Of course, I think his track record is clear with the England national team. Hasn't won anything, but from a Liverpool perspective, might not be a bad bridge to somebody else. Like you and I have been talking about offline, as far as like who wants to be that manager that comes right behind Klopp. Could be a nice way to kind of still have some continuity, and then still a pretty seasoned, experienced manager that can give you a year or two between finding somebody, and maybe Xabi Alonso becomes available after that second year. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, it would be a terrible move for United, I think.
Be a terrible move for Liverpool, or really anyone for that matter, in the top six. But this is the game I was looking forward to speaking about most. Chelsea absolutely bottle it. Burnley go down a man very early. And just to get that out of the way, that was a disgrace of a penalty. Mudryk, there's no way that's a foul, first of all. There's no way that's a penalty and a second yellow card. I mean, the wind, I think the commentator said, could have knocked over Mudryk. And just with the whole VAR, how that was not reviewed and canceled. But, Chelsea get a lifeline there. They score, but then they just, Burnley come back down and then score almost immediately. And then the game ends up tied. Raheem Sterling misses an absolute sitter. Cole Palmer has a good game. I know I was winding you up a little bit during this match, but what were your thoughts on that performance? That could not have been good for you on the Saturday.
You just said it. I don't really have much else to say to that, to be honest. I'm pretty much finished with this squad. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. It was pretty poor. I'll just leave it at that. I think it speaks for itself how they played on the pitch. I know you want me to react because you definitely tried to get it on Saturday.
I did.
Yeah, let's just move on to an instant classic in the Premier League.
Wait, hold on. Okay. Well, so Matt is at the stage of grief where it's like he's just apathetic at this point. You've officially reached apathy. So congratulations. You're on the last stage of grief here, and I'm sure you're excited for the season just to be done at this rate. Good thing you're still in the FA Cup. Wait, no. wait, are you? Yeah,
Yes,
you're still in the
final.
FA Cup. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Semifinal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was really bad, especially against the worst team in the league.
Well,
But
second worst team in the league, but that's okay. We can just make them the worst team if you really want.
basically the same. But yeah, I wanted the instant classic with Newcastle and West Ham. This was the first game played of this weekend, and we were given an absolute treat at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And I thought I was like, wow, if this game can just segue into more, goals and galore, that would be great. I feel like we weren't really dealt that hand. But I mean, a 3-3 game. I mean, God, I don't even know where to start with this game, but West Ham up 3-1 and Newcastle absolutely fight back. Harvey Barnes just puts the team on his back and gets two big goals. Some interesting penalty calls in this one. But I hope this game, I might rewatch this because it was so fun.
Yeah, I mean, even the announcers said this was an instant classic and one that you're going to see on the classics of in 10 or 15 years time. This was a fantastic game, back and forth. Newcastle were pulling ball boys to potentially get lined up and get on the pitch as two players went in and came out within 10 minutes of going on from substitutions, 4 injured players. So this was just, Newcastle's worst nightmare, going up early, taking the lead, and then West Ham scoring 3 unanswered goals. And you're starting to hear the rumblings in St. James's Park. Eddie Howe is doing everything he can. And then out of nowhere, they get an Alexander Isak penalty that he scores. And then Harvey Barnes scores in 2 goals. One is an absolute cracker for the winner to win it 4-3. And that place just absolutely erupted. And it's a it's a really tough loss if you're David Moyes, especially given what where they've been and the noise that he's had around him this season. And that would have been a really nice. They could have moved all the way up into 6th with that win, and almost gotten close to Manchester United, for that last European spot. Now, of course, they're still in Europa League, so they could play them their way in, but it would have been a nice little buffer there as well. But man, this was fun to watch. And it did actually kind of lead into some other fun games. I mean, Fulham and Sheffield were 3-3.
That's
there
true.
was, Bournemouth and Everton was a disaster, but that's not a surprise there. There was a lot of fun games, to watch this out, but we could have put that one on repeat. They could have just played that all weekend and let everyone else kind of just say, we'll take draws.
Couldn't agree more. Can't believe Sheffield actually fought back. Went 3-1 up against Fulham, and Fulham fought back. Excuse me. And that Rodrigo Muniz goal,
fantastic finish
kick, was the goal of the week for me, for sure. He continues.
It wasn't the Seamus Powers own goal in the Everton game.
Oh, Seamus Coleman was.
Seamus Coleman, sorry, yeah.
That might be the best own goal I've seen to recent date. I mean, what was he thinking?
and then to turn around and scream at his own teammates like they did something wrong there. I mean, that's just Everton in a nutshell right there. And credit to Bournemouth for going. Dominic Solanke with a great finish for the first one there.
Yeah.
But Everton are just bad, man. They're really bad.
Sean Dyche I think he's done actually a pretty admirable job. I agree with you and our good friend who tweeted out him, and he's got a feel for him a little bit. I think they'll still just have just enough quality to not get relegated, but they just constantly shoot themselves in the foot every single game, it feels like. And it's, that FFP could be the killer coming out soon. But let's go ahead and move over to the Bundesliga. Bayer Leverkusen, another win, but another comeback win as Hoffenheim actually, they score first, and you were texting me during this game like, this is not good for Bayern or Bayer, excuse me. And then Andrik has, right place, right time with a good finish in the 88th minute. And then Patrick Schick with another game-winning goal. He's done that a lot lately. And Bayer now have 13 points between them and Bayern, and I think that's the second hand on the trophy. They're starting to stitch it in right now.
They're etching it right now. And two reasons why they're etching it. One, the craziness that is. I mean, you mentioned the timing of the first goal, 88th minute. Okay, so that's been their MO all season, is to score late if they've been down. So I'm texting you. It's about 67th minute, 70th minute, because either way, if they draw, it's also, the lead could be single digits, and the pressure, like we've talked about, just amps up on them with Bayern Munich to play, Der Klassiker, which we'll get to in a second. And they get 2 goals in 3 minutes, not just one to equalize. They get 2 to win it. So that's just the season. It's a season of destiny. 39 wins, 39 games, 39 unbeaten in this entire calendar season. Insanity. And the way that they're doing it, it just feels like it's their season to win it. I would go ahead and even Thomas Tuchel said it yesterday, that it is their trophy and it is their season this season, which is quite amazing to hear the Bayern Munich manager concede that the trophy is over, and to give it to Bayern Munich. Now, Bayer Leverkusen, now maybe that's a little bit of gamesmanship, but when you're 13 points down, it feels like it's inevitable. So yeah, just write the Bayer Leverkusen 2023-24 name for Bundesliga champions.
Yeah, and just especially with Xabi committing himself to the project for one more year at least, it's just a wonderful week for Bayer Leverkusen. Still in the Europa League as well. In the Polka, they're on treble watch officially. So gonna really enjoy covering them the rest of the season and see how Xabi Alonso can actually build from this next season, even though it makes me sad. Now, Bayern Munich versus Dortmund was a wild game. I was thinking, Bayern, it was kind of getting back to their best here, and they would do a Bayern here and just absolutely destroy Dortmund at the Allianz Arena. And instead we get the complete opposite. Dortmund get their first win at Allianz Stadium in over a decade with a 2-0 win. Bayern Munich looked terrible. Harry Kane had an off day. And this was a huge win for Dortmund, not only just to get the monkey off their back with beating Bayern, but also kind of supplementing themselves into that 4th spot, trying to catch up with Stuttgart.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start here, because I think, well, let's start with Bayern Munich real quick, because it's kind of an easy story. They just didn't show up. And again, it's hard to believe. You heard Joshua Kimmich after the match as well say that basically he can't believe they played this way. They performed like this in the type of rivalry game in the second half, as though we were playing a preseason friendly. That's when one of your arguably take away the fact that he may not be in the most esteemed light under Tuchel. He's still one of the most seasoned veterans on that squad who's been there and done it all. And to come out and say something like that is pretty glaring, to say the least, as far as what that locker room is, that mindset's been. I think also part of it was what we touched on with Bayer Leverkusen. Basically, when you watch something like that happen, if you're Bayern Munich that plays later, it almost feels like what we can't catch that. It diminishes and puts you down a little bit. And so I think that was part of coming out flat. Dortmund, they needed the win, like you said, especially they got some help as well with RB Leipzig only drawing Mainz. So they get a little bit of cushion now at 3 points clear of them in a big race, 4 points clear. Sorry. And so now it's really a race for, can they catch Stuttgart? And also same for Stuttgart catching Bayern Munich, right? Can those two teams snag Bayern and maybe make this an even more troublesome season for Bayern Munich? So really, really strange day for both these two teams, but Terzic probably needed this win more than Tuchel did, for sure.
Yeah, and Stuttgart ended up drawing, so they're now 3 points from Bayern, and Dortmund are 4 points from them. They were in the lead at one point, which could have made things very interesting, but they gave up the lead late. So Stuttgart continued to kind of churn out and get result after result. Heidenheim is not an easy team to play, so a point's probably a fair result here. But when it comes to the Leipzig, I mean, they struggle against Mainz, one of the worst teams in the Bundesliga. Mainz have now gotten a result 3 times in a row against Leipzig. We mentioned on the betting show that they might kind of have their number here, and they proved that again. Leipzig just did not have a good answer for them. Sesko didn't start, which obviously probably hurt them. But it's a Leipzig. If you're Leipzig, you're really bummed, because we're hoping that Bayern would beat Dortmund, and that was not the case. So Dortmund are now on the outside looking in here on the race to top four, and they got a big hill to climb now.
Yeah, it is 3 points. I was right the first time behind Borussia Dortmund for Leipzig. So you're wondering kind of where they can catch up. And of course, I believe they've played both their fixtures against each other. So you're not going to get a head to head to make up that difference. So you just wonder, if you're Leipzig, you put head down and hope that Dortmund continue this inconsistency that we've seen them play with all season. But at the same time, you're not consistent if you're Leipzig. So it's kind of it's really a no man's land for them, going back to what I mentioned about United. So you kind of just if you're Marco Rosa, you just got to kind of find a way to get them going. But to be honest, I don't see it happening. And I think Borussia Dortmund has more of a chance to catch Stuttgart than Leipzig does of catching Dortmund.
I'd have to agree there. I'd have to agree for sure. But the Bundesliga race has been a fun one, especially with this whole Bayer Leverkusen story, and as well with Stuttgart just completely
both teams. Yeah,
it's been great. But I wanted to get to La Liga. Real Madrid, tough game against Bilbao, but they got a nice 2-0 win. Completely played Athletic Bilbao off the pitch. I was very surprised, as I thought Ernesto Valverde, the Athletic Bilbao coach, had plenty of time to game plan for this. And no Nico Williams probably made the difference here. But they just didn't even get close to getting a goal here. It was Real Madrid the entire game. And Real Madrid now keep an 8-point gap between them and Barcelona, as Barcelona also got a good win against Las Palmas.
Yeah, an absolute worldly of a goal from Rodrigo to start it off too, as well, and that set the tone. And you mentioned it just didn't feel like Athletic Club they had possession. They were given a lot of opportunity, but then once you got about 30, 35 yards away from Real Madrid's box, they closed it down, and that was game over from there. And I think that's something that maybe Ancelotti is happy about, not to take away from this performance from the league's perspective, but I think you're going to have to do exactly just that against Manchester City in 2 weeks for Champions League. So a little bit of practice there where you're kind of playing in that low block, controlling the pace of the play, how it comes into your box defensively. They're going to get Militao back as well, which will be a huge bonus for them. So yeah, this was pretty much what I expected. I would have been surprised had Athletic Club gone to Bernabeu and won. But I would have expected a little bit more of a fight, maybe a draw here. I think we had predicted that in the prediction show, and I said maybe a draw to make it interesting. But now it feels like I don't know where you're going to lose the points other than El Clasico if you're Madrid from a Barcelona's perspective. So it almost feels out of reach, but you never know. Maybe Mallorca can surprise them. Maybe Real Sociedad finds a little bit of form on a given day. Betis, who lost to Girona, which we'll get to in a second. Other than that, I just don't see where you're going to find those points from a Barcelona's perspective to get back in here.
Your only hope is just they really focus on the Champions League and slip up that way. They do play Manchester City next week, so that's really the only way. Those two legs, kind of resting guys in the domestic fixture, is the only way I see that happening. But I think Barcelona's fixture is almost right after the Man City one, so they could lose some concentration there, perhaps. But I mean, credit to Barcelona. Like we said, they churn out another win against Las Palmas. The red card definitely helped their case here, but Rafinha scored a goal early and it was called offsides, and it was probably the most ridiculous offsides call I think I've ever seen. I don't know if you got to see it, but he was a mile on, but they said he interfered with play, and there were some weird VAR calls throughout the leagues this weekend, and that was almost on the top of my list for a bad call from the referees.
Not surprising. I mean, La Liga's had some pretty questionable calls all season, even with VAR. So I didn't get a chance to see it, honestly. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was some weirdness in that one. So again, Barcelona put their foot in their own mouth earlier in the season. And even though they're finding a little bit of form now, and after Xavi said he's not coming back, and of course the board's still trying to convince him to stay, a little bit too little too late, as the old saying goes. So it will be interesting, of course, now that they still have Champions League to play for, which if you're Barcelona, you make a good run, they get to the semifinal or even somehow the way it's set up, they could get to the final. That's a bonus too for them as well. So still lots to play for if you're Barcelona, and you never know. You just keep chugging along, and maybe, like you said, Real Madrid slips. Mallorca, but in between those two Champions League games, is not an easy win, not an easy place to go. Barcelona has Cadiz, so I would rather play Cadiz than Mallorca if I'm in between my two Champions League fixtures. But you just got to play and deliver with what's in front of you. Otherwise, it's kind of a little too late. You're looking at second place in La Liga.
Now, we were, before the international break, we're hitting the sell button on Girona, and they completely answered our call as they beat Betis in an absolute classic of a game, a 3-2 game. Cannot believe Girona won that. And now they, are around 9 points ahead of Athletic Club and 10 points ahead of Atletico Madrid, even though Atletico does play tomorrow against Villarreal. So if Atletico wins that game, that race still could be interesting. But this was a huge win for Girona to kind of keep that third spot to theirs. And we'll see if they can continue to turn out results in April to keep that spot.
Yeah, huge result, like you said, 90th minute winner from Stuani. A guy comes off the bench and just continues to score goals. They were ahead, then they were ahead again, then they give up the equalizer, and Stuani comes in and saves the day. And you mentioned the game tomorrow for Athletic Madrid, and then the big one. They play each other the next game. So this is now real serious crunch time for Girona. If you're going into that game with a chance for Atleti, to get it within 4 points of you, you better put your your big boy pants on and find a way to get a couple points or at least a draw in that next game. But I'm not sold yet, just because they beat an 8th place or 7th place Betis, and they needed a crazy game to do it. That doesn't convince me quite yet, especially with, like I said, this big matchup ahead. So it was a nice win. You tack on 3 points. They still need to get to about 72 points for me to be safe in 4th place.
Yeah. In Serie A, there was not that many games. A lot of these matches will be played on Monday, but for the matches that were played, there was especially one result that was a bit of a surprise for me. I think we both had Atalanta beating Napoli closely, but I did not expect a 3-0 win in Naples. Napoli just did not show up here after international break, after kind of catching some form as of late. And now Napoli are sitting pretty here on the Serie A table.
Yeah, that was surprising. We talked about it in the prediction show that I think like you said, we both had Atalanta winning it, but in the fashion that they did. And of course, Lazio gets a win as well, which propels them above Napoli. So now Napoli's back into 8th place, and you lose ground on that Atalanta, of course, with that being a 6-pointer. So, it's a big loss. Napoli, it seemed like they were trying to find something a little bit. They played better against Barcelona in the Champions League, although they got knocked out. They had some form in the league, and then this happens. It's a real dud of a performance, and you just wonder kind of if they've checked out for the rest of the season too, and that kind of limits that mid-table battle everywhere else. And we'll certainly cover this more as we get closer to the end of the season, with only a handful of games, single digits for most leagues at this point to go. A lot of these mid-table races, especially with the Bundesliga title wrapped up and arguably Serie A title wrapped up and Ligue 1 wrapped up. There's really only 2 races left to go, especially if we get a little bit of luck from Real Madrid. We could be looking at one race, which would be an epic one, mind you, of what's to come in the Premier League. But some of these mid-table races are, as we've alluded to a little bit throughout the course of the year, really starting to take shape and going to dominate the conversation. And this is a good one too, as well. Bologna through Lazio will be a really interesting race in Serie A.
Yeah, Atalanta are only 1 point behind Roma and 4 points behind Bologna. Bologna and Roma do play tomorrow, so they'll have a game in hand on them. So we'll be definitely looking at how Roma and Bologna fare tomorrow to see kind of how this top 3 to 6 kind of shake out here. But we mentioned top 3. Juventus continue their free fall with another loss against Lazio late. They are now still third, but there is 5
A gap.
points
There's a gap.
between. There's a gap, but not. This gap could continue to get closer and closer as Bologna is only 5 points. Juve, we mentioned it before. I think out of 9 games, they're almost winless here. So just a terrible run of form. They actually have to play Lazio again in the Coppa Italia this week. So, it's a little bit too late for Allegri. I think he's overstayed his welcome, and they're going to be looking to move on this summer. But it's very vital for them to keep that Champions League spot. And now it's becoming a question of can they even do it?
Yeah, and I was referring to the gap between them and AC Milan, which has already opened up, which is crazy to think that they had that lead on them, pretty significant lead, just about a month ago or a little over a month ago, and now they're 6 points behind them. And yes, there is a little bit of a gap still between them and fourth, but it's concerning. They could definitely fall out of that Champions League spot, especially with how tight that race is behind them. Just because they're 5 points clear of Bologna, that doesn't mean that they're out of the clear. They're like we just talked about, Bologna to Atalanta is only separated by a few points. So, they could slip all the way down, and that would be a huge blow from financial perspective for Juventus. And, notoriety, of course, this is a team that hasn't been in the Champions League in a couple of seasons now. So this is a big deal for them. And I do agree with you. I think Allegri's definitely gone in the summertime, and it'll be interesting to see. And another job that we haven't talked about, of course, there's a lot of big jobs opening. Barcelona, Manchester United, Liverpool, Juventus is just as big a job as some of those clubs too. So, we'll see who wants that job, and they have a project. It's not easy. Italy is, as we've talked about before, financially, it's a challenge. Of course, there's still a little bit of the shadow of all the scandal that they had there in the past. So it's an interesting job. It'll be interesting to see who takes it and what they can do there. There are pieces, of course, but you got to have the right manager to come in and you hope that they can build off of a Chiesa and Vlahovic and Weston McKennie and Bremer, guys like that, Locatelli. Yeah. There's a lot of talent on that roster. So this is very surprising for where they've been the last, say, 6 weeks, if not a little bit more.
Yeah, and they also have to play Fiorentina, Roma, and Bologna within the last 6-7 games of the season.
Good luck.
So that is for a team that's trending in the wrong direction. All of those other teams are trending in the right direction here. So it's looking pretty dire for Juventus, but we'll see if they can get back on track. Just to cover another result here, AC Milan get a big win against Fiorentina to you mentioned to make that gap even bigger against Juventus. I don't think, a little too late for AC Milan to catch up with Inter Milan here. Still 11 points behind.
That trophy's been ready. That they've already celebrated.
It's been gone. Yeah,
it's been finished.
It's been gone. But if they can get it to single digits, then maybe things get a little bit interesting. But with Inzaghi and how Inter are playing, I just don't see that as very feasible. But at least wanted to give them their flowers for getting a big win against Fiorentina. When it comes to the rest of the world, there was one really big storyline I wanted to talk about. And Leicester has officially choked away their 17-point lead in
But they were the greatest championship team ever.
Yeah, I am eating crow here. Now it's Ipswich Town, which me and Ewan talked about at length here on our championship show, I think around a month ago. Kieran McKenna, an ex-Manchester United coach, has absolutely done a fantastic job. That is a League One side, basically, in the championship. They are one of the worst teams on the roster, or on paper, I guess you could say, and they are completely just reveling the season on 84 points. Leeds is 1 point behind them on 83, and Leicester, with a game in hand, are on 82. So they could still, with a win, I think tomorrow, leapfrog back into first place. But due to their recent form, other than the FA Cup run, it has just been a very bad month or two for them.
Yeah, and of course, if you haven't listened to that championship episode, go back and check it out. You can still find that wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, and
still applicable too.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say that as well. As we're getting to the nitty gritty time of the championship, this is one of the best subdivisions in football, and just how meaningful it is. And they don't call it the most expensive game in the world for no reason when the last place team gets promoted. So you're looking at a really interesting battle right now. You mentioned Leicester in that playoff spot right now, as it were, Daniel, if the league was to finish today, which is surprising given how they had a 17-point lead. And you never know what can happen in the playoff. You never know. Of course, you're looking at teams like Norwich in sixth place at 64 points. They have a little bit of a gap, although Coventry still has a game to play. West Brom, Southampton, and then Leicester City currently are your playoff teams, and then Leeds and Ipswich would get automatic promotion to the Premier League. So exciting time. Championship is arguably, like I said, the most exciting non-top tier division in football, and it's just a fun watch, and it's just going to get funner and funner. It's going to get more entertaining here as we get closer to the end. But it's always a fun watch if you want some good football and meaningful football. It's just a league that means so much to the fans and the players and the towns that they play in. So it's an opportunity to really watch grassroots soccer, football, and enjoy it for sure.
Could not have said that better myself. Now, the other storyline I wanted to mention was PSV finally lose a game. They lose 3-1, a weird result here after international break. But I at least wanted to mention that. Now, that title, like you said, is not even close to anything. But I at least wanted to mention they did finally lose. So congratulations, PSV.
Yeah, and your other lead that you always love taking an eye on, and we haven't had a chance to talk about much though, is Portuguese league. Of course, Sporting have a 1-point lead over Benfica, which is really tight. Benfica are 1 game ahead of Sporting, so Sporting have a game in hand, so that lead could be 4. But a really fun battle there. 2 perennial powers at the top of the Portuguese league, of course, with Porto in 3rd place. Not surprising that those 3 teams are at the top.
Yeah, Ruben Amorim, what a season it would be for him and Gyökeres to win and hoist the Liga NOS trophy there, and then he'll probably ride off to the sunset to a very large club in the summer. So he's definitely going to want to take care of unfinished business in the league before he starts thinking about his next move. But they've been just the best team in the Portuguese league all year, and I hope they continue to cook for the final, last 5 to 7 games of the season. Now, we wanted to end with predictions because there are some midweek games to enjoy, and we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Atletico Madrid, Villarreal play tomorrow. Matt, how do you see that game shaking out?
I think Atleti are going to get it done. I'm not super confident in that, though, just the way that Simeone's men have played of late. Of course, they also have Champions League to look forward to as well. But I do think they have 4th place in their sights still. I think they get it done here and they get a 2-1 win. It's going to be close. Villarreal have been playing very well of late. Even though they're, bottom half, I believe, of the table, they're still a strong squad and have been playing, like I said, better of late, but Atleti get it done.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2-1 Atletico. No, I'm going to say 3-2 Atletico Madrid win. I think there will be goals in this match. We have a 6-pointer on our hands in the Premier League, City versus Villa. If Villa get a point from here, this could be kind of the end of City's run here in the Premier League. And City would actually be extremely close to Manchester City for that 3rd spot. How do you think it shakes out?
I think City are going to win 1-0. I'm not confident.
Villa kind of have their number, honestly.
They do, and that's why I'm a little concerned. I think Villa have more to play for here as well, although, of course, City are in the title race. But like you said, if they were to slip up to Villa could catch them theoretically in not too distant future. So, but I do think that City have enough, and I think maybe Kyle Walker will be back. It's a little quick from the injury that he has, the little hamstring, I think it is. But yeah, I can't see City going down. So that's the tough part for me. I'm lollygagging here. I'll take City 1-0.
I'm gonna go 2-1 City, but it'll be really close, and it might be a last minute.
They're gonna make you sweat for sure.
Oh, no doubt, they always do. An absolute Premier League clash of the Giants here, Chelsea versus Manchester United. Due to both these
not
teams'
wrong, by the way, but that's okay.
Recent form, I don't even know who to pick here. But I mean, as a Chelsea fan, how are you feeling about this match?
Can we just not play this match? Is that possible for us to just ignore it? I'm sure I'm going to hear about it from one of our good friends and listeners of the show all week. So I'm not really looking forward to that. Plus, I'm sure I'll hear it from you. So this is going to be a great week for me. I can't wait for this.
Me too.
And we play on Tuesday together. So I'm sure this will be a really fun debate at soccer on Tuesday. God, we're going to get smoked.
Wow. Really?
I think we lose 2-0.
2-0. Yikes. With that defense, I could see that happening. I'm going to go 2-2 draw. Either way it shakes out, I still should get to make fun of you or my Manchester United friends, so it'll work out either way for me. But honestly, at this rate, getting a reaction from you on a poor performance is kind of what I'm leaning for here. No offense. Bologna, Salernitana, and we mentioned it earlier, they could catch up to Juve or be very close to Juve here with a win against Salernitana. Do you think Bologna get it done?
Yeah, this has been a great story. You've touched on it a little bit throughout the year. I think Bologna, especially with I'm not even going to try.
Salernitana.
Thank you. Being bottom of the table, to be honest. I think Bologna get it done here. I'll take 3-1 Bologna. Watch now, they're going to lose, but I'll take 3-1 Bologna.
I'll go 3-0. I just don't think Salernitana scores a goal. And then we have some cups: Fiorentina versus Atalanta in the Coppa Italia.
Atalanta, they are rolling and they're playing very, very well. I've been high on them all season. They're still in Europa League. One of my sleepers in the Europa League as well, which I've told you before. I'll take them 2-0 in this one.
2-0. I'm going to go 2-1 Atalanta. And then we have a replay of Juve Lazio in the first leg. Same result as Saturday, or something different?
No, I think Juve are putting a little bit more priority on this. So I think they may get this done. If they can get some silverware this season, that's a plus for them. They knew they're not going to win the Scudetta, and of course they feel like they have enough cushion in the table from fourth. So I think they get a 2-1 win here, and that sets up a really nice potential matchup with them and Atalanta in the final in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to go 0-0 here. I think this will be the definition of you're an app game, Matt.
Well, they can't have a loser. First leg. Yeah, that's true.
First leg. So, and then we have PSG Rennes in the Coupe de France. Is PSG going to dominate? They won with a man down today pretty easily against Marseille. Do you think a little bit of the same in the Coupe de France?
If Mbappe plays, yes. If Mbappe doesn't play, it's a little tighter, but yes. So yes. They win probably about 2-0 at a minimum, I would say.
Yes, and yes. I'm going to have to agree with a 3-1 win against Rennes. But Rennes have played PSG pretty closely, so I'm going to give them a little credit here. But that is the show today. Thank you again for tuning in today. If you're listening to this on podcast form, please give us a 5-star rating and download. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and give this video a like and go ahead and subscribe. Follow our TikTok at Full-Time Roundup for the shorts that I put out. And then me and Harrison, shortly after this, we'll be releasing our betting show for the midweek fixtures. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your week.